Luka Doncic signs a 3-year, $165 million max contract extension with the Los Angeles Lakers, indicating his commitment to that franchise. And this is basically the 30% veteran max contract. And Will, you and I talked about it a little bit earlier. There are different kinds of max contracts that I want to emphasize every time that we get into these discussions. There's a rookie max extension that is tied to 25% of the salary cap. As an example of that, Ja Morant is currently on his rookie max extension. He's making $39 million a year. Luka is making the 30% veteran max extension. That is for next year. It hasn't kicked in yet because he's got 1 year left on his current max, and then this extension kicks in the next year. He'll be making $46.3 million, or I think 46.9 next year. And then there is the supermax contract that is worth 35% of the salary cap. And our prime example of a supermax contract is Nikola Jokic, who is going to be making $55 million in salary on his next season, right? And all of these are based on the projected salary cap the first year of your deal, and then there's like little fluctuations within that based on the salary cap in subsequent years. The idea is you're a max guy, you're tied to the salary cap, you're getting paid a ton of money, but if the salary cap goes up or down, it's not going to go down anytime soon. Your contract is tied to your salary is tied to the value of the salary cap, basically, right? When it comes to Luka's deal, like I said, it's a 3-year deal. It's a 2+1, meaning he's got 1 year left on his current contract, and then the extension kicks in next season. So 2026-27 is the first year of that. He'll need 2 more years to be supermax eligible. Now, the reason for that, and you'd be shocked because you're like, well, Luka has made first team All NBA 5 times. Why isn't he eligible for a 35% supermax contract? Well, you can't be supermax eligible if you get traded to another team over the course of your rookie contract, including your rookie extension. So you have to basically be with the same team for 7 years. And because Dallas traded him to LA, they high-key screwed him out of an extra several $100 million contract that he would have been eligible to sign this summer.
So Luka could have signed a supermax with the Mavs
if they'd kept him, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And so now the Lakers, they do get that. Technically, they get Luka for a discount because they don't have to get that to that 35%.
Right, and so this is actually one of the rules that kind of favors, like, it kind of goes like not punishes teams for drafting well, but it like doesn't benefit team. Like, there's no like punishment for a team that like doesn't draft well and just like trades for a star, and like they don't have to pay him the supermax. I get part of why that like this rule exists, because the point of the supermax is to help tie stars to the franchise that drafted them. It's also the reason that Shea, I think, wasn't supermax eligible until a few years later with OKC, because he had to be there for 4 straight years. The other way that you can become supermax eligible is to reach the 10 years of service, so 10 years in the NBA. And Luka is 3 years away from that. So he's got this upcoming season on his current contract and then 2 more years on the extension. And so he'll probably end up declining the player option on the last year of that extension and then sign a 35% supermax at that point, which is the same thing that Anthony Davis did after he got traded from the Pelicans to the Lakers. Had to wait a few years with the Lakers, and then became eligible for the supermax, which I believe kicked in just this past season. Was his first supermax contract.
Yeah. Well, the supermax was created at a time too where you could spend so much money on your team And now there's a lot more penalties and mechanisms in place to control that. And so, not that I think that directly influenced the Mavs' decision to not want to pay Luka the supermax. There's tons of other really bad reasons for that.
Look, man, Luka, I have a lot of problems with Luka as a player, but there's like, me personally, if I were a GM, there's like 5 guys in the NBA that I'd be willing to pay 35% supermax to. Luka's definitively one of them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hell, if that was part of Dallas's calculus, I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Because you have, obviously, the supermax is expensive. It was designed to help keep your star because you could offer them the most amount of money
more than any other team,
than anyone else. But then now, with how everything's working out, it can be a little restrictive because now you're paying a lot of money. You don't have as much for other players in a time where depth is proving to be pretty valuable, you could argue. So, like, what players are you comfortable just sticking with the supermax? Jokic, Giannis. I would say Luka should have been on there. SGA for sure.
I'm still giving Steph a supermax.
And then it's like, I can kind of see some teams and some players once we get past that group where you start to get a little nervous. But back when that was around, you could just throw around supermaxes for the top. I don't know how deep it would go. What, like top 10, how far down could you go toward the top?
Bradley Beal had a supermax contract.
My God.
The Wizards gave Beal a supermax with a player option and a no trade clause. That's why, like, if I were a player, I would want Bartlestein as my agent. No question. Sorry, Rich Paul. Can we just, I have a note on this. I was thinking about it just as we were talking about the Anthony Davis example. How much did he want to get out of New Orleans? I get it. You were being recruited by LeBron. You guys were going to go win a championship. They did the very next year. But I mean, at that point, AD is turning down hundreds of millions of dollars in a supermax eligibility with the Pelicans to go become a Los Angeles Laker. Does he just make all of that back in sponsorships? That's a lot of sponsorships you got to have to make up for that level of a gap in the money and the years that would have been guaranteed to him. And there was no guarantee that, like, look, you win a title. The Lakers did end up extending him on his supermax eventually once he got the secondary eligibility. But what if they didn't want to do that and they were just like, nope, you're just a max player, which I kind of think AD is at this stage in his career. And I didn't realize that the Lakers had given him a supermax when he had signed that max contract. Like, I thought it was worth it at the time because I thought it was the 30% max, not the 35% max. And I think that's maybe part of the Lakers' issues the last few years, even though they have lots of other ones, including, I don't know, complete incompetence at the front office level. But yeah, like, that's a lot of money to give up just to get out of New Orleans, in my opinion.
We have a comment. Can we admit 37-year-old Steph is better than Jamal, 28-year-old Jamal?
Yes. Steph Curry is still an all-time player. I would trade Jamal for Steph today.
Steph's one of the only people that I would be like, well, I guess there'd be more than just Steph, but he's such an easy answer of, I would love to have Steph next to
I'm immediately like, I'm not worried about the fit at all. Like, not worried about the fit at all. And it's going to be glorious. Like, absolutely. Although we'd need a ball handling shooting guard. Someone that can do a little bit more with the ball in their hands to complement that. Or like a three. We'll see like how Cam Johnson sort of fits that kind of thing. But Steph also makes more than Jokic right now because he makes a little bit. His contract there is something above the supermax right now, and it's this I forget what they call it, but it's like if you're a vet, I think you have to be in the league for like 12 plus years or something. You could make like 105% of your previous year's salary, and that's what his extension is. So he's currently making like 38% of the salary cap. So you are like a little bit literally capped in some of the other things that you could do in that situation, but I'd still do it. Yes, we can admit that. I don't think that's an insult to Jamal Murray
Yeah,
at all,
no,
by the
no, no.
way.
Not at all.
um, it's
Well,
a
yeah.
testament to the player that Steph has been able to maintain himself as. Like 37-year-old Steph Curry is a top 7 impact player in the NBA. That's just like what it is.
But it may not last for too much longer. I mean, if you're a Steph
They can't
fan,
keep getting away with this.
yeah. I mean, he's getting older, so it's like it's not going to last forever. But his game is pretty translatable, I think, to an older player. Like he just kind of runs off ball and shoots threes. Like he can do that for sure. He doesn't need like explosive jumping ability and all that, though. He can be good at getting downhill, and his rim finishing is still amazing. But yeah, let's talk about the Nuggets aspect of this all with Luka.
Yeah.
To kind of tie it
So
into
yeah,
our
back
team
to
here.
Luka Doncic here. This was a lot of people's question after this extension happened. Is now that Luka has committed himself to the Los Angeles Lakers for the foreseeable future, and because Jokic did not sign his extension this summer, should Denver be worried that Luka will lure Jokic to the Lakers in free agency in 2027? It would be.
I would say absolutely no. I have no concern about Jokic wanting to go to the Lakers at all.
Confident.
Yeah, I'm so confident in that. It just seems like, I mean, LA
Has anyone
is
told
the
Jokic that a Bronco is a horse? Has anyone told him that yet?
yeah. The Lakers are the spotlight is very hot in LA. It is burning and bright, and Jokic doesn't want that. I feel like Denver was a perfect market for his personality. He likes the connections. I think he likes consistency. I would be so shocked if he would leave Denver. Definitely not for LA. I get that Luka is there, but unfortunately, Luka has now made himself the enemy. And I'm sure that
I
they'll
mean,
have
he's
a
been
fun, friendly rivalry as time goes on. But, when that trade happened, I said there's 0% chance that Luka becomes a Nugget now, like that night. That's what I
yeah,
said. And
absolutely.
obviously,
Yeah,
some people were
he's not leaving the
holding out
Lakers,
hope.
dude.
They were holding out
He
hope
also
that he
he
could
talked about
not
how he loves the
extend.
water, dude.
Yeah. It just seems so unlikely, especially because we are seeing this trend where players are just extending where they're ending up. And maybe you could trade for them or like try to, maybe something happens where he's not happy and asks out. And that could still happen potentially. But I just felt like the extension was going to come quickly. I didn't think it'd take this long, but it happened. So I'm ready to fight Luka.
Besides Thomas Bryant, has anyone ever initiated a trade request from the Los Angeles Lakers?
No, but they really should start.
Yeah, I agree. I look, maybe, but I doubt it. Right? Like I said, Jokic didn't sign his extension this summer. It's funny because it's crazy how 0 to 60 this could go, because regardless of whether Denver wins the title next year, and the odds are that they don't win the title next year. Obviously, we're hoping that it happens, but the odds are that it doesn't, because winning the title is really hard. Jokic is extension eligible again next summer for a bigger deal. If he says no, then the panic meter goes from like a 10 to like a 99
I think
because
that,
there's no
yeah,
reason for him not to extend next summer from a financial perspective. Um,
he will extend.
yeah,
There's no way he won't.
so I'm just saying, possible. But also, there's no reason to panic at this particular moment, or very little reason to panic. Let's wait a year. Let's see what happens, right? All right, let's talk about the extension that happened the very next day. So Luka Doncic and De'Aaron Fox were both extension eligible on the same day, but Fox did not sign his extension on August 1st. He signed his extension on August 2nd. So Spurs decide to fork over a 4-year, $229 million max extension to De'Aaron Fox. This is another 30% of the cap, of the salary cap, veteran maximum. I was surprised. Obviously, this is different than Luka's deal because Fox is not going to be somebody that's going to be supermax eligible. He's not trying to get to the 10 years of service. He's trying to sign the longest deal possible. I was surprised at the length of this deal. Technically, Fox was eligible for a 4-year contract extension because he's got 1 year left on his current deal. And he was max eligible because he's surpassed the 7 years of service to become a veteran maximum guy. He's a one-time All-Star. It was 2023, the year that the Kings made the playoffs. It's crazy to say the year that the Kings made the playoffs because it's literally happened one time in the last 20 some odd years. And the Spurs obviously trade for him mid-season. And then they basically sign him as soon as he becomes extension eligible. They sign him to the max deal that 100%, if Fox had stayed with the Kings, this is what the Kings would have given him. They want to lock him up. They give him as much money as possible. He's their best player. He's their most fun player. He's who they were building around, or ostensibly. It's the Kings after all. But I'm surprised that the Spurs didn't at least wait a little. But it seems like they're not an organization that does the posturing too much. But what did you think about this deal when it happened initially, before we talk about the backlash? Because there was a lot of backlash to this contract extension.
I guess I was just a little bit surprised because there seemed to be some drama brewing with them maybe not even wanting to prioritize Fox as part of the organization, with other guards in the pipeline and young players in the pipeline. And I thought that kind of made some sense, but it would be strange to shift off Fox so quickly after they got him.
Trade.
Yeah. So it was like a mix of like, okay, I guess that happened, and now there's not as much drama to talk about from that front. But now you have the logistics of the extension to kind of pick apart, if you wish. And yeah, I guess it's like pretty long. But again, I think you could still trade Fox. I don't see his value like tanking in any crazy way that there's no way the Spurs could move off of him.
Yeah, he's got a certain floor, right? Where it's like, yeah, this maybe is like a slightly negative value contract, but he's not going to be like Bradley Beal on a max contract, let alone obviously Beal was on a supermax, which was insane. It seems to be in like the Spurs organizational DNA. They seem to take care of guys when they can. They don't like drama in and around their organization. And I have to imagine the fact that Fox, you know, when all this was going down with the Kings and the lots of drama with the Kings this year, Fox was like, I want to be traded. Not an official trade request, but Rich Paul just putting the feelers out in the media and all this stuff. I find that interesting. I wonder how often we get official trade initiated trade requests, like we did with Dame. But obviously, there are situations where guys want out, right? I guess Jimmy Butler was another example. But Fox wanted out, and he had a couple of different destinations in mind. It was basically the Spurs, the Rockets. I can't remember if there was another team in there. But he wanted to be closer to his wife's family that is in Texas. So that was part of the reason for the Texas teams. But he also said, like, hey, I want to go play with Wemby. He said, I want to go. That was his top, team and then the Spurs, like, figured out a way to make that trade happen. And I don't know how often that has happened with the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, they've been able to pick guys up in trades, not necessarily all-star or like sub-all-star level players, however you want to define De'Aaron Fox. They've been able to pick up guys up off of waivers and kind of make things happen in the past in terms of finding diamonds in the rough. But I don't think they've had a situation like this where a guy was like, I really want to be part of this organization. Please trade for me. Right? And so they did it. And I think they were like, yeah, we're going to make good on this. We're going to pay this guy. This is a good player. He wants to be here. Hard worker, all of this stuff. And so I wasn't shocked that the extension happened. There was some of the drama about the fact that the Spurs drafted Dylan Harper. But it's one of those things where it's like, we have the second overall pick and he's very clearly the second best player in this draft class. So we're not going to take him. Also, Dylan Harper's going to be a rookie. Who knows, especially a rookie guard, who knows how long it takes him to be like a good NBA player. Meanwhile, Wemby is getting better and better each day, and he wants to be competitive right now. So it's not like we're going to turn over the reins of our franchise to a 19-year-old that isn't Wemby, right? In the case of Dylan Harper. So not surprised that it happened, but I was surprised about the years. I want to talk about the backlash to this extension in the context of a non-extension that has happened, hasn't happened yet. Trae Young. It was reported that Trae Young was disappointed that Atlanta hasn't offered him a contract extension. The way that it was reported is that they haven't offered an extension at all. But I suspect that, I guess it's one of those things where it's like, if you're not offering the max extension yet, you're probably not going to offer a smaller number unless you're sure you're not going to immediately piss the guy off. But it seems like he's already pissed off that he hasn't gotten an extension, even though the word sent out to the media here was disappointment. Trae Young and De'Aaron Fox were talked about over this last week as players that were not worthy of max contract extensions, because in the case of Fox, he's just a one-time all-star. He's probably not going to fit next to Wemby. The Spurs fit is questionable. All these reasons. There's lots of reasons that you could have for the Spurs not wanting to offer Fox a maximum contract. In the case of Trae, it's like Atlanta has been like the same on the floor with and without him over the last few years. He's too ball dominant. He doesn't play well with other good players, although I don't know what the data is for that, because the best player that he's played next to is probably Jalen Johnson. Like, I know DeJounte Murray was over there, but like, it's DeJounte Murray, a worse guard than him. So it's not like Trae has ever played with a player that is better than he is. Do you think Trae is going to get a max extension from Atlanta? They're not in a situation like the Spurs where they have another player that's like in the pipeline. It's going to be, they have to worry about them getting a max extension down the line in terms of trying to worry about their financial flexibility.
Oh man, yeah.
And he is definitively their best player right now.
We were just listing players who you would feel comfortable doling out this much cash to. I don't think Trae would be in that tier. But sometimes you just, like we did with Jamal, sometimes you just have to do it because that's the guy in your organization. I do think it is kind of strange. I like what they did. I think the Hawks are going to be pretty interesting as a team. I think they made some good decisions. And you know, I was almost surprised. I thought they'd move off Trae sooner than they'd like retool around him in this way so quickly. To move off of him or not sign him would be a little bit strange, I would say. But I'm not sure when or what, especially the this late in the
summer.
Do they want to test Trae out with this team because it's like arguably one of the best teams he's had? So if it doesn't work out or he doesn't look that great, does that then tell you something about Trae? Is it a little bit of a test to see how he does? I'm not sure, but seems maybe like it's heading along those lines. Chat is actually debating Trae Young and Jamal Murray a lot in the comments, and they're wondering if you would ever trade Jamal for Trae.
I personally would not do that, but I think there's an argument for it. I think that Trae, Jamal, and Fox, and this is kind of why I brought all these three players together in my notes, are a similar tier of player. Obviously, Trae has made multiple All-Star appearances, albeit in the East. He's the best offensive engine of the three of them. And again, we don't have the evidence for it because Trae has never played with a player that is even arguably better / more impactful than he is. And the best sample size of that you could argue they have is early season Jalen Johnson before he got injured again, right? And misses another, 50 or so games this last season. But Fox and Jamal have shown the ability to like play off of in the case of Jamal, a clearly better player. In the case of Fox, with Domantas Sabonis, it's like questionably better depending on the night and the matchup, right? Maybe Domas is their most important regular season player, but Fox is clearly their best player when they had the playoff series against the Warriors, for example, right? Yeah, so I think there's an argument to be made. I do think that the concerns with Trae are very real. The defensive concerns are incredibly real, and the limitations that you can have on your team defensively, trying to build around a 6'3" guard are real. But I also think that Atlanta has literally built their team around Trae. The whole idea right now with this current team alignment is they've got Trae, they've got one other two-way player in Jalen Johnson, and then everyone else, and Kristaps Porzingis, I guess. But I mean, how healthy is he going to be? It's not like he's in their long-term plans either. And then everyone else is defensive, right? Defensive or middling / limited offensively in terms of creation, sometimes in terms of play finishing even, right? Which is part of the reason that I don't understand people being exceedingly low on Trae in this discussion. Like, again, if you want to be low on Trae getting a max extension, I think you also have to be low on Fox getting a max extension from the Spurs. But part of the argument here is, okay, I can understand them being like, look, I don't think the Hawks should give him a max. And I think if you're not willing to extend Trae this summer, you have to be willing to move on from him. And it doesn't seem like the Hawks are willing to do that, because if you want to move on from the guy, you should probably have just traded him at the beginning of the summer or last year or the year before that when his stock was higher, right? Because there are other teams that could have used his skills. Like, it was I don't know if the Spurs were actually ever like genuinely interested, but there were conversations that they would be interested in a Trae Young or a Darius Garland type. They were looking for a point guard to pair with Wemby. Eventually it happened upon Fox, who decided he wanted to go there, right? And he's not the same kind of point guard as those guys. And Trae, as a point guard, is probably that's tough because Garland has been so down. I was going to say up and down, but down in the playoffs. Trae has at least been able to show that he can make offensive impact in the playoffs in a way that Garland hasn't. And obviously injuries have played a part in that. So there's a lot of like arguments between these guys, right? But I think that it's that we can agree that they're probably within the similar tier of player. And the question is, do these like sometimes, or in the case of Jamal, no time all-stars that are not, they're not all ball dominant, but they're all point guards and they all are important for your offense. Are they worth a max contract? And it's like, well, if you want to keep them, you probably pay them a max contract, because I think, especially in the case of Trae, maybe even more so than Jamal, because Trae is a better offensive engine. There are teams at the bottom of the league right now that would love to have a talent like Trae Young. There are teams that haven't made the playoffs since Trae's rookie season, right? I was arguing with a Hawks fan online. I get it. If a Hawks fan is like, I'm ready to move on from Trae, I'm ready to be done with this whole experience. All right, fine. Like, you're ready to tank and you want to just like tear it down and start over again. That's fine. Right? But if part of the argument is like, this guy isn't worth this money, it's like, well, you're worth the money that teams are willing to pay. Right? That's just how the labor market works within the NBA. And I feel pretty confident that there are 2 to 3 teams that'd be willing to give Trae a max contract. And so, yeah, I think the argument around the discussion around these two guys, Trae and Fox, has kind of fallen off the rails, because again, like, if you're saying the Spurs shouldn't have given Fox the max, like, sure, but the reason they give him the max is because he left a really bad situation in Sacramento, but a team that was willing to give him that money. Like, it was a bad situation in Sacramento, but the Kings were absolutely going to give Fox this 4-year extension, right? And in the case of Trae, it's like, what are the Hawks doing? If they want to tear down and rebuild, then like trade him. Like, because what are you doing? I don't know. Any other thoughts on Trae and Fox?
I think there's a really good argument that they are in a similar tier. Trae's probably a little underrated. Fox might be a little overrated, but I do think Fox's value was higher and he was more well respected as like an established player in the league, and he was more sought after than Trae. Like there was more teams that were interested in Fox than Trae for sure. But yeah,
I guess
like
the question, because Fox, I think like people could picture like, okay, I could see this guy as like a number 2 on a contender. Whereas with Trae, it's like he's never played with a better player, so it kind of goes like against him. As much as like I'm making the argument, it's like, well, I think you should give this guy the benefit of the doubt because you don't know whether or not he could play with a better player than him, because he's been so ball dominant. But he's been so ball dominant because he's been the best player on his team for like by far for a very long time. So there's no reason for him to be like, okay, you DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray had 28% usage when Trae was off the floor in Atlanta, which is insane. That's higher than like Jokic's usage in 2023, right? And I think Trae like it basically has that usage when they shared the floor, which is like not good. But they were the best players on that team, so like, what else do you want them to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, and it's hard. They're different. There are different archetypes, even offensively, in their body types. Same position, they play differently. I love players who, like, if you count assists and points and total points added through points and assists, I love players that are super high on that. And Trae is one of those players. So I'd definitely be going against myself to say that I don't like how Trae plays because of what he brings to the table in those regards. That's why I love Jokic and why I kind of dog on Shea a little bit, even though, you know, Shea's arguably the second best player in the league, if maybe third best. But yeah, I know Trae's underrated. It's weird that he's in this situation. I think this team's going to be good, and he'll probably show once again his value, and he'll probably get a max. Because I just think once he has a more consistent team, he'll show that he's pretty good.
I do think Atlanta will probably try to get like a shorter deal done, like a 3-year extension, and probably no player option. On that, I don't think they have a reason to put a player option on that and a shorter deal with a good player. That's my prediction. I think they're going to do that, and they might like front load it so that it's like descending in some way. There's different ways that you can structure these things, but I think ultimately it's going to average out to 30% max value. Multiple time All-Star, has been the best player on this team, because otherwise, again, it's like, if you're not extending Trae, then trade him, because clearly you want to rebuild, because without Trae, you're talking about a team that's like not doing anything anyway, which is fine. And you want to rebuild around Jalen Johnson, that's fine. Then like trade him, like trade Trae. Last extension, veteran extension that we've got here. Mikal Bridges signs a 4-year, $150 million deal with the New York Knicks. This is pretty close to the maximum contract extension that he could have gotten. He's moving up from 16% of the cap this year to making 21% of the cap next year. On his deal, he's going to be making around basically around what MPJ was making, right? In the high 30s, and then I think he leaps into the 40s in the last year of this deal. A couple of observations about this extension, which actually happened before all of the guards that we just talked about. He is eligible to get traded before the trade deadline because they didn't wait too long. This was something that, you know, for all the people that wanted to, you know, complain about Jamal last season, that annoyed me about the way that the Nuggets went about his extension last summer, was like, okay, if you're trying to trade him, like, get the extension done sooner so that he's trade eligible by the deadline. They didn't do that. But the Knicks did this, and they gave him a player option, it seems like, to get this done sooner. And also, I think him taking the slight discount, that's like $1.5 million discount per year off of the most he could have signed for. helped to get that player option as well. There were reports of discord in the Knicks locker room this season, including, and probably most famously, McCall being unhappy with how much Tibbs was playing him, and him making comments to the media about how Tibbs should, and sort of like it was gentle nudging, but it was very like, oh, hey Tibbs, you should use these bench players more because they can be really helpful. Will Mike Brown, the Knicks' new head coach, fix all of this? Or will McCall be wearing a different jersey by the trade deadline?
I don't know if by trade deadline, but I could see in the offseason him being traded. The East is going to be pretty easy. The Knicks are going to have a high seed. Would they move off? It depends on who they could get. But I don't see them being in a desperate enough situation out East. They'll be in a pretty good spot.
That's true.
Though
how bad could it possibly be?
They should recognize the West is insanely good and that they probably would lose in the finals should they make it there. They really want to stay competitive, get aggressive. But
I do think the Knicks are still a tier below the Cavs in terms of being a regular season team. So if they had designs on being the 1 seed, it's probably not going to happen. But the Knicks have played this Cavs core before. It's really just Jalen Brunson and Mitchell Robinson because a lot of the Knicks have changed since then. I don't think that Brunson is like afraid of the Cavs because they kind of like dogged them the last time that they played. So he's probably not afraid of, and I think they didn't have home court in that series either. But, you know, if it's like, oh, the Knicks are like fighting with the Pistons for the 4 seed, come trade deadline time, and there's like locker room discord because they're like, and like, who's the 2 seed in that situation? The Magic?
Let's hope.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's probably not going to be until the offseason, especially because of the length of his deal. But, if they were trying to shed salary, it's easier to trade McCall during the season when he's making less money now and trading for like a contract making that less money than before his bigger number kicks in next season. So I could see that happening. But they spent a lot of draft capital to get him. So I was not surprised at all that this extension happened, or that it was the years, or that it was the player option, just because it's like the Knicks have too much invested in him to not give him everything in this case, which was the money, the years, the player option. Yeah, so I just had here, like, how bad would it have to start out for New York to seek a midseason trade involving any one of Cat, OG, or McCall? Like, what is the situation in the Eastern Conference for the Knicks? Like, I feel like if they're not a top 4 seed in January, that is pretty catastrophic when you're talking about the state of the Eastern Conference right now.
If they had no injuries or no circumstances that would explain it, then I would say, like, if they were in play-in range, that's when they would panic. I think they could be. Oh my God.
I don't even know how you get there. I don't even know who the 7th team in the East is going to be.
I don't know. The East is always weird. I just can't predict it. It's so strange. And sometimes teams are down there for a while and they rock it up and it's looking like they're just falling off somehow. And then you have the Heat, who are the 8th seed and go to the finals. So you just don't know. I mean, I expect that the Knicks will be fine. They have so much talent. They absolutely crushed us last season. It's hard to imagine them being out of the top 4. So I don't know. I just don't see them doing a trade deadline trade, especially with the trend of the NBA. Like, we saw so many trades in this offseason and barely any trades at the trade deadline. As much as people want stuff to happen at the trade deadline, it just does not happen.
We did have like a pretty noisy trade deadline this year, like relatively to the last few years. And it might be one of those things where the previous year, off season, we had Jimmy. Obviously, we had almost KD, right?
Oh yeah.
And then he basically vetoed that, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
We had Brandon Ingram, right? Any other big, like, who were the big role players that changed teams at the trade deadline? It was the thing is, Will, the Nuggets did nothing, but the Nuggets were like one of 2 teams that did nothing at the trade deadline. I think everyone else was making moves, but it wasn't necessarily all big moves. And obviously it seemed quiet to us because we were like internally screaming that nothing was happening.
I think we'll know. You get a track on those types of moves that are building momentum or you know that a team's looking to shop a player, or a player himself is disgruntled and looking to move. And you usually hear about those things and they either resolve at the deadline or they don't. I don't see a ton of shocking moves at the deadline, but they can still happen, obviously.
Well, you gotta have shocking. This is dumb because we literally forgot Luka Doncic got traded mid-season to the Los Angeles Lakers. That's pretty big, like the biggest trade in sports
that
history.
Was mid-season. Jesus,
happened.
That felt like 2 seasons ago to me for some reason.
I know. Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah,
I feel like that trumps everything. That's a loud trade deadline. Then we had the Lakers tried to trade for Mark Williams and then it rescinded the trade. Like there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that happened this trade deadline.
That's true.
I feel like,
but it just may not be like.
I don't know how much bigger you get though. Like, what is it that you're looking for?
I'm just like to the level of moving a cat who was a really big contract. It would be hard to move into the right situation. I could see maybe Mikal Bridges being traded, but
honestly, I could see them moving Cat just because there are so many teams that want any kind of center. Doesn't matter if they're a good defender or not. They just like want a big. And so you could see like one of these bottom feeder teams being like, let's upgrade our center position and then like see how far we could get. Like, let's say I could see the Hornets making that kind of move. Yeah. Or like if the Suns are like, okay, we're not trying to be an actual tanking team. Booker and Cat would be a very funny duo. I'm just saying, this stuff is possible. We should definitely we should do a ranking of our top 5 like shock moves that would shock us if they happened mid-season, and then we wouldn't be shocked because we predicted them. If you've made it this far, we really, really do appreciate you guys that make it to the end of these really long streams. If you do like our content, please remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. Our social links are in the description. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks, especially losing a negotiation.